Hi, my name is Lisa Richter, Director of Industry Outreach and Growth for CSIA. Welcome to this masterclass. Before we get started, a quick word about CSIA. Probably most of you here today are familiar with the association, but if you are not, all you really need to know is that CSIA's mission is to help SIs build better businesses. How do we do that? Well, for starters, we have a team of volunteer SIs who have crowdsourced a best practices manual to help SIs scale their businesses. CSIA also offers a certification program and many other resources and benefits, including professional development, learning from your peers, and access to professional services experts, including insurance, financial, and legal, who understand the SI's unique business needs. For partner members, CSIA offers an ecosystem to grow your SI programs, understand your customers' pain points, monitor industry trends, and share your thought leadership. With thousands of qualified integrators and suppliers, the CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange helps SIs, industry suppliers, and manufacturers connect and do business. For SIs and partners, it provides a platform to support your content and SEO marketing efforts, position yourself as a thought leader, and nurture prospects during their complicated buyer's journey. If you are not currently a member, now is a great time to join. Membership provides you and your entire team a full lineup of virtual events and other resources, from accounting to sales to operations, 365 days per year. Plus, being a CSIA member means you get special pricing for the CSIA Executive Conference in addition to other resources. If you are currently a member, thank you. Membership renewals are currently underway. If you are the primary or billing contact, you should have received notifications via email. If you have not, please check your spam folder. I'm noticing a lot of legit emails getting trapped because IT departments are locking things down with good reason. A lot of bad actors out there. If you have any questions about the renewal process, please contact CSI staff. One last housekeeping note before I turn it over to today's speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. That helps us stay organized. You're more than welcome to chat amongst yourself in the chat feature, but it's super helpful for us to have the questions all in one place. It helps us serve you better, as they say. And before somebody pops up in the chat, yes, the session is being recorded, and you will get a link to the recording in the next day or so. At this time, I would like to turn it over to today's speakers. Take it away, guys.
Good morning, everyone. So let me just share my screen, and then we will get this show on the road. So if my colleagues can just confirm that they can actually see my screen.
Yep, I can see it.
Perfect. Thank you, Win. So my name is David. Try and pronounce that later, and we'll have fun about it. I'm business development for Software Toolbox. Together with me, I'm joined by Win Worrell, which is our sales director, and also Rodrigo Restrepo, which is one of our senior technical consultants. And what we talk to you about today is actually a practical and a bit of a business element of how do we get real-time results by integrating the operational technology or the OT environment into the business environment, and more specifically SAP for that matter. So without further ado, let's quickly just review the agenda, or what we're trying to, the message that we're trying to communicate to the audience today. So firstly, we're going to just talk generically about integrating OT and IT, or the operational technology and the information technology environment. Why, what, how, etc. And I've got an interesting spin around that. Then we're going to really dissect that and talk about the real benefits. So we're going to role play that slightly, just in order to put a bit of a different spin on things and get a different bit of an opinion about things. Then we will look at the various different integration options, especially and in detail in terms of what we're going to show you today from a practical perspective. And then just cover a little bit about SAP as a solution and how, what, where it fits, with a little bit of terminology. And then what everyone, I would assume, is here on the call to also see and experience is the practical side of things. And once we're done with that, we will revert back into just discussing what the real opportunity is at hand, and also just a summary for that matter. So enough talking, let's start the show today. So as you can see in the right-hand side bottom corner, I'm not taking credit for this, but what is a presentation without not consulting the online Einstein of the world, or so we seem or think it is. So I've gone to ChatGPT, And I just said, listen, this is who I am. I'm a professional in industry. We're addressing the SAIMC, the CSIA. SAIMC is where I come from, the equivalent there. And we would like to integrate SAP to our OT environment. Please explain the value to me. And surprise, surprise, it gave me some sort of a indication. I'm not going to read through everything there, but what I want to highlight there in this generic response is really the key elements which I've highlighted in red. So we're talking about keywords like more efficient production, better quality control, improved maintenance, improved reliability of equipment. So that kind of makes sense, but it's not enough in my opinion. And when we go a little bit further and say, well, why do we integrate OT and IT layers? Those same nuances in terms of focus areas relating to reducing downtime, quality control, real-time information, enable someone for better decision making, all pops up. So we're on the right track, but what does it really mean? So that's why I want us to go into this element of what is the real benefits of this. So just as a prelude, I thought, let's ask our friend ChatGPT. So let's talk about the real benefits. Now, I need to talk firstly about my phenomenal photoshopping skills, but nevertheless, not bragging about that. I'd like us to introduce ourselves from a persona point of view in this presentation today and what we are all about. So Win, can you take it away, please? Can we hear Win?
I think might
Yeah,
have
when
lost
you're
your
on
Oh,
mic.
hey guys, sorry about that. Yeah, so today I'm going to play the chief digital officer at a company that we made up called SB Beverage Company. And what we do at SB Beverage is we make fruit juices. So I started in the operations side of the business, and I was in a technical role. And in my new role, I'm in charge of digitalization, specifically merging OT and IT technologies.
Thank you, Win, for that very clear introduction. Then obviously from our side, we've got David, myself, we've got Rod. Rod, just say hello to the people, please.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
And thanks, Rod. And we'll hear a lot more from Rod a little bit later. We from the Software Toolbox team, or in this case, the Anchormen. And we're here to actually explore the business opportunity, the business requirement, and Rod being the clever one on the call, showing us how actually to go about in doing this. And then last but not least, we need you, and not just want you, the system integrator community. So you are also an incredible part of this call, because we, from a software toolbox perspective, are here to take our technologies and our solutions and enable you so you can add value and do the integration to your customers. So let's quickly just revisit. So I did some interesting research over the last couple of weeks in preparation for this presentation. And one of the interesting reports that's out there, very, very to the point, very short, I think about 5 or 6 pages. I've got the URL there at the bottom, is from audit firm and consulting firm Deloitte. So they had a report where they kind of analyzed, very recent, what is the trends to watch when it comes to 2023 relating to manufacturing. So there's a couple of key points. There's in actual fact 5 key points, which I found quite interesting and not surprising either. So the first key point is about technology, but not just generic technology. It's about how do manufacturers utilize technology in order to mitigate risk, to maintain momentum. So that's business momentum. So, be a going concern and make money, ensure long-term profitability, but also most importantly, how do they apply technology to still remain or become agile in terms of what they're doing. Second component, which was an interesting read, was about talent and the concept of talent retainment and et cetera, et cetera. So we won't address that today, but the human resource and the human capital component of manufacturing is also a very important element. Then there's the ultimate supply chain. Now, I'm pretty sure there's not a single person on this call that hasn't been burned by the supply chain, specifically in the industrial automation sector over the last 2 years, and that is globally applicable. So it's all about achieving supply chain assurance and using concepts of digital transformation in order of doing that. So that's an interesting element on its own. Smart factory goes without introduction, whether we call it Industry 4.0 or digital transformation or smart industry or whatever, but that's still a going concern and a very valid component. And then last but not least, the sustainability factor, where more and more corporates have some sort of a corporate social responsibility requirement, whether that's net zero initiatives or waste management or emissions, and that's quite important. So I thought, let's say, where are we going? And then you will see how this play out in terms of how we can enable these kind of scenarios. But just from a validation point of view, Win, if I may ask you a question, within your organization, the SB Beverage Company, is there any relevance to these? And does it mean anything just from an audience validation perspective?
I'll say all of those items are on upper level management's radar. There's two that specifically resonate with me, and that is around sustainability. Currently, we are on a big net zero drive, and sustainability is an initiative we've been working on, but I know we can do better. We do capture data on waste, but I only get weekly reports on that because it's manually data that's entered once a week. And the second one is technology. I know technology is going to play a critical role in digitalization. Over the years, we've done a lot of improvements in our automation on the operation side, most of it through technology. And I expect technology to take a center stage as we implement these new initiatives.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for validating. Truly appreciate it. And it puts a different context to things. So let's quickly just put things in context and say, right, most of us on this call probably come from the bottom end of the manufacturing side. So we understand the layer 0, the layer 1, the layer 2, but there's also the level 4 or the layer 4 as people refer to, which is the enterprise or the business system. So what is the real function of an enterprise resource planning solution or system within a business? So most importantly, well, I say most importantly, because that's what we live for, is the finance component, where there's typically a module. And by the way, I'm highlighting a few specific modules here that's relevant to manufacturing businesses. If it was a fintech business or a financial business or a telecoms business, there might have been, or there definitely is, other modules that's not really applicable to manufacturing. But generically speaking, finance is one of those modules. And that's in charge and controls the accounting and the outlooks from a financial state. And jokingly, things like accounts payable and accounts receivable, which is stuff that we as Software Toolbox love, and the system integrators love it even more, because that's where the money comes from if you're on the AP list. Secondly, there's the procurement side, where you plan your procurement and you do your procurement as a business utilizing your ERP solution. And again, we and the system integrator community, we love that, because that's where the purchase orders come from. Now, spanning a little bit into the manufacturing environment, generally a manufacturing module exists within an enterprise solution. And we'll explore that with Win a little bit. And typically MRP, or material requirement planning and production planning and scheduling and resource management and forecasting versus actual calculations in terms of what my manufacturing plan was and what I manufactured is all managed at that layer on top, because that's where it also converts it back to dollars and cents, for that matter, in order to understand what does it really cost, or what did it really cost in order to manufacture X, Y, or Z. Parallel to that, there's generally an inventory management module that makes sure that you are controlling your inventory and tracking your inventory properly. Because if you don't manage your stock on hand, whether that's raw material or half manufactured goods or full completed goods, it's all money tied up or capital tied up on the shelves if you have too much or too little of that. And lastly, the supply chain, which is probably, as we've seen in the Deloitte's report, is a very, very big focus, because having that unison and that management of that supply chain is so important to make sure that everything else plays and works in harmony, for that matter. And that's why it's very, very closely integrated, especially the blue blocks. So Win, from your perspective, I believe your business uses SAP as an enterprise resource planning solution. Does this ring a bell, and does this look familiar in terms of your day-to-day activities and interaction with the system?
Yeah, I would agree that mainly we're using the items you have highlighted in blue. And we currently, what I want to talk about today is we currently don't have any integration between our SAP system and our MES system. Everything we do right now between the two systems done by hand entering data.
So we will explore your architecture and your solution stack a little bit in a few slides from now. But thank you for validating that. And it's key what you said. Currently, the way you integrate information between what you planned and how you execute is done by paper or by clipboard or by hand. And we'll show you a better way of actually doing that. So without, this is by no means a definitive list in terms of the functional modules. There's some other interesting modules, EAM, which is an enterprise asset management module that allows you to do your asset maintenance and asset care, would also benefit hugely if one integrates more condition-based information from the plant floor into that, and even quality management in order to do real-time quality management and stop production instead of working on half quality goods in terms of trying to achieve a 100% quality product. So that covers the function that the business system actually plays in a manufacturing environment. Let's look at integration options. So I've got a single slide here that kind of just illustrates the way that generally we would approach this. So if one looks at, and I'm going to take Wynn's scenario as a bit of a reference, SAP, it's no surprise, SAP also has some middleware that has the integration ability in order to integrate with a plant floor for that matter. So generally, the way people do integrate is using the ERP vendor's middleware. There's also, if you have an off-the-shelf or a MES or manufacturing execution system solution, there's generally some middleware that sometimes do come with that allows you to do the enterprise integration, both upwards and downwards or bi-directionally. I've personally worked in solutions, non-SAP solutions, where we've used the simple concept of a staging database or a flat file transfer in order to receive and send data. But by far the most or the technology that's used the most in terms of integrating the business and the plant is the manual data capturing or the Microsoft Excel and clipboard scenario. The challenge with these kind of solutions, and especially when we talk about the ERP and to a certain extent the third party or the MES middleware solutions, that your traditional information or your traditional industrial automation resources, people that's familiar with SCADA, PLC, HMI, MIS, and to a certain extent MES, they don't really play in this role because the ERP vendors do take over that from a specialized perspective. So before I talk about the right-hand side of the dotted line, have you looked at specific solutions, specifically from the ERP vendor in order to integrate? And why have you not done it yet using the ERP solution, for example?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this resonates a lot with me because, as I said, I came from the operations side, and my goal is to have someone on the operations team maintain the solution in the long run. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason, it was pretty expensive, and between those two, we didn't implement the ERP vendor middleware.
Understood. So it's about cost of ownership and also maintaining that with the specific resources required in order to keep that thing in a tip-top shape.
Exactly.
So what we are going to show you today and talk to you about today, and hopefully we get you to look a little bit different about how we integrate the business in the shop floor, is using one of the technology solutions that we provide in the US market. So, I mean, the requirement is if you want to make sure that the cost of ownership is the lowest as possible, there's got to be absolutely no customization. There's got to be no code. It's got to be standardized. It's got to be certified. It's got to be simple to work with. So when we say simple, is give me a visual interface that I can drag and drop. And it has to potentially give me some more ability to not just talk about shop floor to top floor integration, but if I had some other technologies out there, how one could actually bring that information into my business system or any other system for that matter. And probably most importantly, fast return on investment. So I want to do something now, not forgetting about using resources that already understands my plant floor, my industrial automation environment. And this is where the system integrator component comes in. Because if we can enable this and achieve this by using standard automation type resources, we will definitely get a fast return on investment and someone that can really maintain a solution like that. So this is what we'd like to show you today in a real-time perspective. So just last two slides in terms of SAP to just put it in context. So SAP, as you guys are using one, largest ERP vendor in the world, 12th largest technology company in the world. Number 2, when it comes to market share from an ERP perspective, Microsoft leads ERP by about, if I look at that pie chart, 31.5% to SAP's about 11.8%. But there's more than 400,000 businesses globally using SAP. There's 180 different countries using it. And out of interest, SAP is an acronym for systems, applications, and products. Last slide before we get into the really interesting stuff from a terminologies perspective, and you'll also see that through the technology that we're going to show and Rod's going to show to us. So NetWeaver, you would have heard SAP NetWeaver. NetWeaver is really just a software stack, and it's the technical foundation where all the SAP applications are built and run on. RFC goes without saying, so we're going to utilize RFC or remote function calls today in order to interact with the SAP solution. ABAP is an acronym for Advanced Business Application Programming, which is really just the naming of the SAP high-level programming language. BAPIs is business application interfaces that's developed on top of the ABAP or with the ABAP programming language. And you'll see that also as a potential integration capability. So BAPIs and RFCs, for example, are synchronous integration between SAP and the destination or the source. And then lastly, we have iDocs, which is the asynchronous way of integrating into SAP. Think of it similar to an XML type integration or an XML type file format. So just to put that out there, so when we refer to that and look at the specific transfer objects, which Rod's going to show us, at least there's some familiarity. So what we are going to show you today is a product by the name of OPC Router. OPC Router is a certified interface that can utilize RFCs, BAPIs, or iDoc to integrate bi-directionally into SAP. MII, which is one of the SAP integration platforms, is not required for OPC Router to actually successfully integrate into SAP. Bi-directional is what we've all said. Visually, so easy to understand, easy to execute, easy to change, and easy to maintain. And it opens the world for more than just what we see on the right-hand side to have database information to SAP and vice versa. I can even take it down to a plant level or a field level and take information straight from my PLC into a SAP scenario. And it doesn't have the same limitations as SAP's plant connectivity suite, for example. So if we now move into the practical side, Win, I'd like you just to confirm a few things, and now we're going to pull in Rod. So just to quickly highlight your solution that you have on site, you've got SAP sitting on level 4. You're using it for planning and scheduling, for recipe and formulation management, and for inventory management purposes. Is that correct?
Yep, exactly.
Perfect. Then you've also explained to us that you've got some sort of a custom-baked MES solution, which you enter information into for recipe execution purposes and for inventory tracking purposes, and there's integration to your automation layer from an execution point of view. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah. And as the image shows, we have some automation from the lower levels up to level 3, but between level 3 and 4, that's where the manual data entry is. And that's the problem we're trying to fix today.
All right. So it's not real time, it's prone to errors, it's not integrated, it's not auditable, and you just hope for the best. And I guess if the person that does the manual data entry isn't at work today, you ain't getting data today. You're only going to get it tomorrow.
Yeah, being able to get these reports real time is going to offer a lot of flexibility in scheduling and some other things that we have in mind for the future of the business.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. So as we said, we're positioning OPC Router, which we're going to show you, and we're going to suck information out of SAP and push that to your recipe execution element from the MES database. And once the recipes or the production schedule has been completed, we're going to take that inventory usage and update the inventory tables into SAP just like that. And as you say, there might be some future requirements. So we're going to have a session on the 8th of March, if you're interested, where we're going to show you how SAP can actually, via OPC UA, integrate directly to the PLC and also suck other information to support your sustainability drives, etc. For example, from your plant historian using a REST API and back into SAP. But that's enough talking from me. Now it's over to Rod. And Rod, will you please show us how? So you allowed to share overview. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David. Let me see. Share the screen. All right. So we should be able to see the screen.
We can see the
Okay.
PowerPoint.
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So so today we're gonna walk you through a live demo on how to utilize OPC router to basically make that integration. So in this slide, I'm trying to describe to you the live system that we have in place and how the flow of data is gonna go. So on this side, we got the SAP live system. It's being hosted on a different machine. And we got the MES system, which is an SQL Server 2016 database that is also hosted in a different system. And the premise of the exercise is pretty much going to be that we're going to fetch data from the SAP to update the local tables in the MES system. And the one that we're specifically looking for is the recipe table. So in this case, we have this recipe table that I'm assuming you're going to have operators creating transactions and updating these tables as they go. So before we go and start performing the job, we want to make sure that we have the latest data for that recipe. So we're going to go ahead and fetch that. And then the other thing that we're going to demonstrate is how we're able to use OPC router to get data out of the MES system into your SAP system. In this case, it's going to be an inventory table. So this inventory table in the MES system is going to be continuously updated. And then this table in the SAP system is going to be updated in a timely manner. So it could be an interval of 15, 20 minutes, as much as you would like it to be.
So you're saying that once a batch completes, you can update my inventory table in SAP, and I'll essentially, instead of having to wait a day, I'll have more real-time end of batch information readily available. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, that is correct.
To me, the value is even more. You said 10, 15 minutes, Rod, not 10, 15 working weeks.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love to see this.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go ahead and move on. So here I have a system where I'm running OPC router. So just a brief description of how OPC router works. On your left-hand side, you have the controls for the application, and on the right-hand side, you have what we call transfer objects and the triggers. The transfer objects is what allows you to manipulate the data, interact with the plugins and the connections that you're making to these other technologies. And then it allows you to basically manipulate that data into other transfer objects. And obviously we got the triggers that allows us to trigger a specific flow of data. It can be time trigger, it can be data change, or any database change that OPC router senses. So we have multiple of those, okay? So the first thing we're gonna walk through is how do we connect to SAP and how do we connect to the MES system? So at the root of every connection, you have what we call a plugin connection. So in here we have the SAP plugin, which is a native SAP plugin. We're gonna use NetWeaver in this case to make an RFC call to that live SAP system. And it's as simple as selecting it, clicking add, and you will see the configuration window. For sake of time, I have gone ahead and prepare one already. In this case, the name is the name that you want to give that plugin. That way it makes sense. So if you have multiple SAP systems you connect into, you can distinguish. In this case, we're going to use, again, RFC protocol. Given the nature of what we're doing, we need a synchronous call type of schema to be able to get a synchronous type of behavior where the system is being hosted, and as well as security. So you obviously need a username and password for that.
So from my SAP expert, I'll just need the IP address of the machine and then the SAP username and password, and that should be about it.
Correct. You will need this parameter, so it will be the system number and the client as well. And yes, the user that is going to be interacting with that SAP system. And then here we can just do a quick test and we see the connection established. Simple as that. And then now we move on. As I mentioned, the MES system is an SQL Server 2016. So we move down to relational databases and we'll look at MS SQL. Click there. And the same similar thing, you can just add a new one. In here, I have created one for the sake of time, but it's pretty much the same concept. You have the name. This is to distinguish which database or which plugin is it that you want to interact with whenever we start manipulating the data. Here is the host of the system that I'm getting. Here you can see that once you start enter the host and the username and password, I can browse that database and select different databases in that sense. And then obviously we can manipulate the connection settings.
So I
Check.
see a whole lot of other like plugins on the left-hand side over there. You know, some of those that catch my eye are OPC and barcode readers. Is that something else we could integrate into my SAP system? Say, like when a pallet is full and the barcode is scanned before it leaves the warehouse, maybe we update SAP. Is that possible?
Yeah, definitely. So yes, the OPC router does have the capability to connect to many technologies. In this case, the mostly used ones are like REST, MQTT, OPC, making OPC router act as an OPC client. It could also act as an OPC server. But yes, definitely the barcode could, you can configure a barcode, fairly simple. Sorry about that. Barcode reader. Oh, sorry about that.
What I like about this is that this, you know, like I said, I'm gonna have people on my team from the operations side managing this tool, and these are technologies that, you know, OPC and other things that they're used to. So I do feel very comfortable from that standpoint.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and if they have any questions, they can always reach out to us, and we can go ahead and help them through that.
Cool.
Work. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move on to the connection side. So the connection side is where you start creating what you will call your so-called project. It will be your connection flow, how do you want the data. So in this case, I preemptively created some folders. So here we're gonna first do the demo for the SAP to the MES system. And it's as simple as right-clicking on it, create new connection. In this case, I'm gonna call it page recipe demo. Come on.
It's an Italian version of recipe.
So now, oh yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, so here basically we have the connection. So now we move on to our left-hand side, right-hand side, where we're gonna go ahead and select the transfer objects that we're gonna be interacting with. So in this case, because we're gonna get the data from SAP and we're doing an RFC call, we select and drag and drop the SAP RFC object. We double click on it. We get to configure the parameters. In here, I get to look for that plugin I just configured on my plugins window. And then the beauty of this is that right now you're pretty much connected to SAP. And the way I can prove this is if I'm gonna go ahead and filter and look for function groups that are available in the SAP system, is as simple as that. I filter and these are all the function groups that are available to me. Obviously, if you have a custom function group, is denoted by the letter Z. It always starts with the letter Z in this case. So this is the function group I'm going to be looking for. And then after I select that function group, I'm going to go ahead and select the function module that I'm going to be using. So I go ahead and click on filter. In this case, we're going to get a recipe from SAP. So in this case, I select that one. I click OK. Oh, and before we jump off, actually, we get to select the parameters. So in this case, you have import, export, changing. You can think of it these in a more simplistic way as input, output parameters. And changing is parameters that are always changing back and forth between the two. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use, because we want to select a specific drink. And we basically want the recipe back. And then we're going to go ahead and get the message in case we get an error from the SAP system. All right, so that's as simple as that. Now we're gonna go ahead and update the MES system. So in this case, we need to go ahead and look for the database transfer object. Go ahead, select, drag and drop, double click on it. And here, because that's the only plugin, it kind of automatically selects it for you, but that's the plugin we just configured in the plugins window. Then the beauty of this is that you are not required to write any SQL queries. The plugin OPC router allows you to do SQL queries without any coding, any type of SQL transactions. And as you can see, you can do selects, inserts, updates, deletes, and even call store procedures. So in this case, we're gonna go ahead and do an update because we're trying to update an existing table and an existing row in that table. In this case, I'm gonna go ahead and select the recipe table. This is in my MES system. I move all the columns. I'm not gonna be using this column, so I'm gonna go ahead and set back. And I'll add a filter because I want to update a specific a row in that window. and it's going to be denoted by the drink ID. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then the beauty of this is like whenever I go ahead and get a drink ID, I can go ahead and just drag and drop and point it. Oops, sorry about that. And then it will select there. It also, LPC Router has, let's say you have 20 parameters that you want to move to the other one. As long as this is selected, you press Control and you select the name and you point to the transfer object, it automatically does all that for you, so you don't have to do one by one, right? Now, for the sake of time, I have gone ahead and already have one configured. In this case, we have like the working connection. The only difference here is that I added other transfer objects, in this case, a local variable called recipe FM to look at the error, and then the system time that basically tells us, hey, this is when this was updated in the SQL server. And then the variable trigger, this could be denoted and can be anything. In this case, kind of you talked about the barcode scanner, right? Or in this case, what it's happening whenever the MES system starts a job, this variable gets updated, and we know, hey, go ahead and fetch that data.
So it could even be a start button on a SCADA or HMI that the
Exactly.
operator presses. All right.
Exactly. Yeah. And then once you configure it, it's as simple as publishing the changes, you go productive. And here we can see the system already fetching data. So in this case, the variable changed to an 8. This is the drink we're getting back. So when we look at the system, we made an RFC call to SAP system, and we got the passion fruit recipe. In this case, now we see that now we move to the next job is doing grape juice. So now we get the latest value for that. And as you see the error, we have recipe was read successfully. No issues there. Now, if we want data out of the MES system into the SAP, is similarly, you will do it, but it will be the inverse. And in case we did run out of time, I went ahead and basically created one where we have a database transfer object with a select, where we're selecting the inventory table. And then as you see here, we have the entire table, and we're trying to update the SAP system with the latest numbers that the MES system has. And then here we have the SAP inventory table is updated successfully. In this case, I do have a trigger to happen every 15 seconds. So every 15 seconds, I'm feeding data to the SAP system. But as we spoke in the past, this could be something that can be triggered right after the job is done, or there is a barcode scanner whenever you have a pallet of drinks, and whenever it gets scanned, go ahead and push that to the SAP system.
Yeah, in our case, we got a tag in the PLC that represents when a batch completes. Is that possible?
Yep, definitely.
Okay, and that would just use OPC because it would connect to my
Correct.
existing OPC server.
Correct. In that case, you will have an data change trigger from the OPC trigger section. And yes, depending on whenever that tag goes high or low, you go ahead and try to execute that flow of connection.
Perfect. Great.
Right. So that's pretty much it. And here I have demonstrated how to get data from the SAP system into an MES system, and vice versa, moving from MES to the SAP system.
So Rod, would it be possible just to show us that it's not vaporware, that
exactly
is a live SAP?
Yeah, and that was the last part I was going to show, which here's the live SAP system we have, the one we're interacting with. So this is what we currently have as of before this meeting started. And then if I go ahead and refresh the data, we can see that the numbers change. And every 15 seconds, these numbers should be changing because that's the update rate that I have, right? But if there was no job, obviously in those 15 seconds, it will be the same data that the MES system has. Okay.
Brilliant.
Great.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I'll put it, it was 16 minutes or 15 minutes and 50 seconds to have this configured. So well done.
Yep. No problem.
So if we now revisit, so I'm going to try and share overview again, Rod, to just try and wrap this up. So if I say share, just confirm that you can see everything. But this is the architecture we went to.
Yep.
So we've now seen from a live perspective. So what is the real, in summary? So we've looked at OPC Router, and we've seen OPC Router is a visual, very, very easy and simplistic way of moving data from A to B, or from B to A for that matter. In the case that we've looked now, we've moved data from a Microsoft SQL database to SAP and vice versa. But the possibilities are endless because of all this connection objects that we have, or the ability to connect to specific sources. And that makes it incredibly powerful, but yet still understandable from a industrial automation domain. So what it allows you to do is obviously to get very quick return on investment and rapid value to add optimized business performance to your business. And we've shown you now how SAP can interact with the MES solution, but it's also applicable to other ERP solutions, because generally, if you don't have SAP, you would just use some sort of a web service or some sort of a REST API in order to integrate. So there's also objects that allows you to configure those. And it really is no effort, like Rod has explained and showed to us now. Is really no effort in this instance to connect shop floor to top floor. So what is the real opportunity? So to Win's perspective, and from Win's perspective, I think, Win, you can agree that this is really fast time to value.
Yeah, and I do feel like my operators can manage most of this once we get it implemented.
Exactly. It's not a black box scenario, and
it doesn't require any custom development, which is one of our priorities as well.
Correct. Secondly, I do believe, and we are of the firm belief, that this opens up the possibility to the existing industrial automation resources typically of system integrators to expand your offering to your clients to a certain extent, because this OPC Router speaks the native language and is configured in a similar way of what we used to from a plant floor perspective. And SAP shouldn't be something that we scram away from, which is quite a complex environment on the top. But because of a certified interface, we should not be worried about that. Then, just out of interest sake, and Wern, I heard you in the corridor the other day speaking to one of the product development guys. We visited the whole manufacturing trends of 2023 as published by Deloitte. But I heard that you spoke about e-commerce and potential individualization of products on your side. What does that mean, and how does this play into the utilization of this kind of technology?
Well, sure. Yeah. So you know how a lot of companies are doing it these days, but one example is like a shoe company. I mean, you can go online, you can order a custom shoe that is, exactly what you want, whatever colors you want. And we had the idea to do this same thing, but for juices, allowing our commercial customers who purchase juice to customize a juice that's individual for their business. And we can't do that without this integration. We've got to be able to connect everything, have real-time inventory tracking, and we need to be able to make sure we can produce the juice and give the customer a valid timeline for when they're going to get it. And all that requires this integration piece. So that might be a little bit down the future, 6 months to a year, but we need this piece in place before we can get there.
That's supported by the right technology that you can maintain, so you're not creating a black box for yourself.
Exactly.
So that's quite interesting to understand. And then to recap, talking to the system integrator community, this is really an opportunity to increase your business value to your existing clients, and that's why we reiterate that we need you. So that takes us to the end of today's discussion. Obviously, now we have some minutes left from a Q&A perspective, so feel free to pop the questions. I haven't checked anything yet. And there's also the QR code you can scan to actually get a little bit more information. And there's a beautiful white paper that can be downloadable from the provided link or from the QR code that talks about SAP integration. So from all of us, we say thank you very much for your time and attending, and we look forward to actually answer some questions if there's any questions posted in the Q&A.
I got a question from my customer standpoint. Are licenses available in perpetual or subscription or both?
When easy, I can do both. So if you more a subscription type person, you can subscribe and pay me on an annual basis. If you like to outright own the licenses, go buy what you need. So you would need the SAP integration module, you would need the database module, for example.
Got it.
And
And
that's as
speaking
easy
of
as
that, let's say in the future I want to add OPC or the barcode scanning ability. Is that something I can do at a later date? Because, the barcode project is not really a priority today.
Absolutely. So you can add and license those functionalities down the line. So it's very, very modular from a licensing point of view.
Okay. And I do have one other question for Rod is, I know we talked about the resources on the SAP side and we need to be able to get the username and password and IP address. What else is required? I mean, I guess someone's got to create those RFC calls, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So if you're making any RFC calls, this is pretty much kind of indicative you already have a function group and a function module available in SAP, and that will come from the SAP experts, whoever is in charge of the SAP system, to be able to provide those for you. So in that case, you will have to reach out to them and have the conversation like, hey, these are the parameters I need, right? This is the information I need, and this is what I want to give you back. Can you have a function module available for me to be able to do just that?
Sure.
But once that discussion has happened, I mean, what we're not saying here, we're not saying the standard SI is now becoming an SAP resource. There's still a very, very big requirement for the SAP specialist and resource. But once that, let's call it procedure, has been created in that business language and in the business environment, and the attributes have been exposed, like Rod has shown us, the import and the export attributes, literally any other integration resource can go map that call and say, well, I'm taking this from there and this from there and send it up. And by the way, give me this error message if it wasn't successful. So, yeah.
I do have another question. This one from a user in the chat. They said, what if the SAP is hosted in the cloud? Could we still connect to it using the module?
Look, we're going to have to, from my perspective, maybe Rod, you want to take that, but I've got another component also to that I'd like to add.
Yeah, and typically when SAP systems are hosted in cloud environments, they have the capability to expose those RFC calls. Like whenever you use ABAP and any NetWeaver, I mean, it's pretty much the nature of what the SAP system's trying to do. They're trying to make it as integratable as possible. So as long as we have a network path to reach to that SAP system, we should be able to reach out to it with the same plugin.
And if I can add to that, SAP also has let's call it a virtual database component, which is used for analytics, which is termed SAP HANA, HANA. And there's a separate connector that allows you to also push and receive data from SAP HANA. Typically, HANA sits in the cloud. So it gives you that two options for that matter.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, guys. Well, I'll just say my email is in front of you if you'd like to write that down. And if you have anything you'd like to ask after this that comes to mind, feel free to shoot me an email directly. My name's Win, W-I-N, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions you guys do run into after this event.
Actually, Win, it would be probably helpful if you just type that into the chat for people to copy and paste.
Good idea.
Yeah, sometimes I have those. All right, my colleague
put that
Holly.
link in there too, Win.
Sure, I will do it. I'll throw that in as well.
There you go.
Thanks.
Thank you. And my colleague Holly is going to throw up my last couple of slides here, guys. On behalf of CSA, I would like to thank our today's speakers for this informative discussion, and also, of course, Software Toolbox for sponsoring the event. And of course, thank you for attending. Be sure to bookmark the CSIA events calendar so you don't miss any upcoming events. And that's a wrap. Once again, thank you for joining us and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Have a
Have a
great
good
one.
one.